Welcome back to Cities on Console. Welcome if you're new. Today we'll be doing our weekly Cities Skylines 2 Developer Diary Deep Dive. This week, of course, we've been talking about Citizen Simulation and LifePath. We learned a bit about the subject from the featured highlights video, but we'll be diving deeper into all the details and intricacies this time around. Before getting into the video, however, I want to ask you to consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and to drop a like if you end up enjoying today's video or finding it informative. As always, please also feel free to drop a dislike if you don't, as any and all engagement is welcome and helps me improve the channel and make more of the content you all find helpful, entertaining, and worthwhile. But without further ado, let's get into the Citizen Simulation and LifePath Developer Diary. So it starts by letting us know that citizens act as one of the primary agents simulated in the game. They are residents of the houses in the residential zones, they're also the workforce of the industrial, commercial, and office zones, and they're the customers in the commercial zones. Citizens suffer if the services do not operate properly, but they also reap the benefits and flourish if you manage to govern your city well and answer their various needs. Citizens are always up to something, choosing from a variety of different activities. These include mundane things such as going to work or school, shopping, sleeping, or studying, but they also have rarer activities such as committing a crime, escaping the crime scene, seeking medical treatment, and moving away. Many of these actions have simulation effects such as traveling to different places, causing traffic on the roads, shopping causing changes in the economy simulation, albeit small when considering individual households, and getting medical treatment, which takes up patient spots at the medical facility. Also, it is worth knowing that citizens can own pets. Pet owners are chosen randomly from the citizen pool, and while pets are purely cosmetic and do not affect citizen happiness or their consumption of resources, garbage accumulation, or noise pollution, they add a bit of flavor to your city. Cool. So yeah, we already knew that pets were coming back. We already had dogs in Cities 1. Now they're saying pets. I believe they've been integrating cats into the game as well, so that's cool. But what is sort of interesting about that is I know there was some sort of no pets policy that you could enact in Cities 1 that would, I believe it reduced garbage accumulation, but it obviously lowered citizen happiness because obviously everyone's less happy without a pet. But it sounds like that's not going to have any impact this time around. It says it doesn't affect garbage accumulation in particular, which is the one thing that it did impact in the last game, so that's worth noting, I guess. We get our first image here saying you can spot citizens and their four-legged friends around the city. And then we can see a bunch of people walking, a bunch of pedestrians here. And it looks like this one dude in particular has two dogs that he's walking, which is cool. Although I guess those dogs could belong to any of these people. I don't know exactly how far they walk behind them, beside them, what have you. But it'd be cool if you could see people with multiple pets. I think that'd make it even more interesting. But not super important. But maybe we'll find out if that's the case here soon. And this section wraps up by saying each citizen has their own life path, which describes major events in their lives. They either move into the city or are born there. They grow up, go to school, and find work. They spend their free time at home, in the parks and other attractions, or go shopping in the city's commercial buildings. They might get sick or become unemployed, and if they are happy, they will stay in the city and eventually grow old and die of old age, all of which you can keep an eye on. Cool. So again, kind of going back to what we talked about in the video, we're going to be able to keep up with all these milestones. We can actually select someone and track them through their entire lifespan if we so choose. So I think that's really cool. And then we get into citizen happiness, which is the overall value that represents a citizen's satisfaction in their life. It's a combination of their well-being and health and affects the citizen's behavior and their ability to work. It is always visible to the player in the citizen's info panel, and hovering over the family's combined happiness level with the mouse cursor in the household's info panel shows detailed information about all the things that contribute to the value. Cool, and again, we saw that menu the other day where you could hover over an individual's household to kind of see their household collective happiness level as well, which I think would be a very useful tool in the game for sure. But for well-being indicates the citizen's mental state and sense of safety. Satisfying basic needs such as having reliable electricity and clean water, as well as sufficient sewage treatment so their toilets don't overflow, will go a long way in building a solid base for their well-being. Taking care of garbage piling up and planning residential areas to avoid air, ground, and noise pollution builds on that foundation, while good city service coverage provides a passive boost to citizen well-being. Furthermore, you'll want to ensure your citizens feel safe, as living in areas with high crime probability stresses them out and decreases their well-being. That totally makes sense. Just like in the real world, you live in a high crime area, that's stressful. That's not what you want. So, yeah, simple enough. Amenities such as a functioning postal service and high-speed internet connection are valued by citizens, along with a suitable sized apartment that matches their household's needs. Families tend to look for larger homes in low-density housing areas and small apartment buildings, while singles and students can still flourish in compact apartments such as those available in tall residential towers and low-rent apartment blocks. The citizens are consumers at heart, and having options to buy and consume goods positively affects their well-being. Cool, that all makes sense. And our next image here says the Happiness Info View provides a quick overview of what makes your citizens happy or unhappy, as well as highlights areas that can be improved. So this is our Happiness Info View here. And again, we looked at this the other day. We see there's a bunch of different factors in determining a citizen's happiness. Again, my question here is, do each of these factors impact every citizen the same? So for example, good education services. Will some citizens or families, households even, get more of a boost to their happiness by having this availability compared to others? Will they prioritize some of these things over others, or is it just kind of a flat rate for all of that stuff for everyone in the area? That's kind of my big question with that. I think it'd be cool if there was a little bit of variation to it, not too much, because that could be difficult to manage at that point. But having some sort of individualism or uniqueness to it, I think, could always be a plus. But again, one of those things not super important, and we'll find out soon enough because the game's less than 2 months away at this point. And next we are getting into health. So the physical health of your citizens can be inspected in the Healthcare Info View, which shows the health of the residential buildings as a whole, as well as the city's health average. If a citizen is sick or injured, it is shown in their info panel. Health is affected by the availability of health care in the form of a passive health boost received by living in close proximity to a medical facility and receiving treatment at medical facilities in case of a sickness or injury from an accident, both of which severely reduce a citizen's health. Cool, and it looks like we get a look at our Healthcare Info View here, which says keep an eye on your citizens' health using the Healthcare and Death Care Info View. Okay. Cool, yeah, so those are just kind of combined, so we can see not only the availability of healthcare in the area, but we can also see the availability of crematoriums and cemeteries to provide death care and get rid of those dead bodies as well. So yeah, nothing too revolutionary there, pretty standard stuff, but again, kind of clean, nice looking menus, even though there's so many menus here. It looks like they've done well with the UI to make it not too overwhelming. So that's very good. Getting back into the article, living in areas affected by air and ground pollution has a negative impact on a citizen's health. The stronger the pollution is, the more severe the effect. If the city has insufficient sewage treatment, it will cause the sewage to back up, decreasing citizens' health. While garbage piling up affects the citizens' well-being, it also affects their health, so providing the city with adequate waste management is important for the quality of life of the citizens. And if the city isn't up to the task, the citizens will tell you about it in their Chirper accounts. Citizens can become sick even if they are not directly affected by any of the aforementioned causes. The probability of becoming sick depends on the health of the citizen. Higher health reduces the risk of getting sick with a cold. However, when a citizen does become sick, their health decreases greatly. Sick citizens travel to the nearest medical facility to get treatment for their sickness. But if their condition is too poor to travel by themselves, an ambulance is sent to pick them up. Cool, so the system there makes sense, and I think it's kind of cool that they'll experience sort of intermittent illnesses as well. So I mentioned colds in particular. I think that's really cool. Just an interesting new little mechanic, because in Cities 1, of course, you could have sickness, but it was always only caused by pollution of some kind, be it actual air or ground pollution, or even noise pollution would cause sickness. And I believe they always traveled by ambulance. So having this sort of realistic twist to that this time around, I think is pretty cool. And in our next image, it says medical clinics and hospitals will send out ambulances to pick up sick or injured citizens. So here we just get a shot of an ambulance. Nice looking vehicle. Nice looking vehicles everywhere, actually. Ridiculous amount of motorcycles I've noticed so far in a lot of the trailers and videos and articles that we've been through so far. Hopefully it's a more realistic amount of motorcycles and we're not just seeing, hundreds of people flying around on motorcycles when it's snowing and raining and, just really take away from the realism in that way. But other than that, everything looks good. Good graphics by the looks of it, so definitely a big improvement to Cities 1. But more on health, citizens also require medical treatment if they get injured in traffic accidents. In that case, an ambulance is sent to the site of the traffic accident to pick up the injured and bring them to the medical facility. Similar to sickness, the citizens get medical treatment while at the hospital or medical clinic. After the sickness or injury has been treated, citizens' health starts to improve. However, while sick or injured, the citizen has a chance of dying. The probability is relatively low in general, but is related to the citizen's current health level. The lower the health, the higher the risk of dying as a result of their condition. Wow. So, yeah, we will be experiencing people dying in car accidents and things like that. As grim and terrible as that is in the real world, it's kind of cool in a game just to have that level of realism. So a very strange thing to say, but I am super excited for people to die in car accidents in City Skylines 2. Anyway, we will move on from there. And the next thing we're going to talk about is age groups. So, citizens age through 4 different life stages, and each age group is visually distinct from the others. You'll find children, teens, adults, and seniors in your cities, and families or households can be comprised of multiple generations from children to grandparents. As citizens get older, their education options change and their health varies. Children and teens have a health boost while seniors' health slowly decreases. Their age also determines their ability to work, and every citizen can choose to work once they reach the teen age group, though some will prefer to continue their education before finding a job. Cool, so all that's pretty straightforward. I think it's interesting the health changes as you age. I think that's pretty cool. So you will actually see seniors having more health problems and making more regular visits to healthcare facilities. So that's pretty cool. And this image here says your city is home to a wide variety of citizens. Okay. Yeah, and this just shows us, looks like a ridiculous amount of people at what might be like a bus stop. And then in the background, looks like we have a subway stop, which is very similar to the first game, but looks so much better. As do the actual pedestrian paths. Those look so much better than those blobby ones we had in the first game. Looks really nice. Cool. But moving on to preferences, each age group from teens to seniors has preferences for how to travel the city and what types of goods interest them when shopping for the household. When traveling, teens prefer the cheaper mode of transport and weigh it against how far they're willing to walk to their destination. If they travel by car, they would rather park far away in a free parking spot than be closer to their destination while paying a fee. Adults value time, however, so they find the quickest way to get where they need to be and are willing to pay whatever fee necessary as long as it gets them there fast, be it parking fees, public transport, ticket fees, or fuel costs for their personal vehicle. Seniors prioritize comfort above all. For them, it's not about whether it's cheap or expensive, fast or slow, as long as they get as near as possible to their destination and as comfortably as possible. A direct route to the front door is always the best option. Similarly, age groups also have preferences when it comes to shopping for their household. Many available goods are relatively evenly bought by all types of households, but goods such as electronics are more likely bought by households with teens than households with seniors. On the other hand, seniors are more likely to consume financial goods compared to households with children or teens. Cool. So again, all that stuff makes sense and is in line with what you'd sort of expect in the real world. Teens love their electronics, old people don't. So yeah, really straightforward stuff. And next we're getting into Citizens LifePath and Chirper. Citizens have a life path dotted with different events such as graduating from school, finding a spouse, landing a new job, and moving to a new home or away from the city. You can keep an eye on those events through the Life Path Journal by following a citizen. This is done by selecting the citizen and clicking the follow button, adding them to the list of followed citizens found on the right side of the screen right below Chirper. Cool, so it's essentially just like following someone on social media, but within the game. The Life Path Journal records everything from the added citizens from the moment they are followed. The journal entry lists their name, home address, current occupation, happiness, and other information, as well as their Chirper feed, where they tell the whole world what is going on in their daily life. A keen player can spot the connections between the citizens' surroundings, such as education, job opportunities, and living conditions, to the changes in their lives, the jobs they get, and the choices they make. Cool. Keep up with your favorite citizens using the Life Path Journal. And then here we get a look at the journal. So here we're following Matthew Dennis. He's talking about his first day at Yaksu. Looks like that's his new company he's recently joined as of August 2031. Now it's just September. So yeah, he started a new job last month. That's pretty cool. He got married a couple months before that. So that's really cool as well. Strangely here. Okay, so alright, so this is actually a funny trajectory here. So moving in with Karen, right? So he's dating Karen, he moves in together in March. Same month, he's like, maybe you're the right person, but this just isn't the time. I just have to go. So he moved in with Karen in March, dipped out in March, and then 2 months later, in May, he finally got married to Diane. Oh my god, this guy, his life's a roller coaster. But anyway, yeah, and then he starts his new job at Yaksu. And he's wealthy, so he's got that going for him. But yeah, it just says employee, which obviously that doesn't really tell us much. I wonder if there's going to be a little more detail with what specific roles are. I think that could be helpful to the realism of it and just, keeping it interesting. But anyway, I can already tell this feed is going to be really funny. It's going to be funny to keep track of people and, roller coasters of their lives like this guy. But yes, you have that right, they say. Chirper, the lovable bird from City Skylines, makes its glorious return in Cities 2. Its functionality has been expanded and integrated more into the core gameplay as citizens voice their happiness and frustration about the various things happening in the city. The chirps relate to actual events, and looking at the likes, you can see just how important the subject matter is to the Chirp Center and to others. Citizens can inform you about the lack of city services and congratulate you when various services and leisure needs have been met. Cool. Both citizens and city services use Chirper to share their opinions and important information. Cool, okay. So yeah, we can see here the electricity department actually put out an update. Letting everyone know the production is not meeting demand, so forced to import from some of our neighbors. So yeah, Chirper is going to be kind of a two-part thing. It's kind of just cool just to have that in the game, keep up with what everybody's doing. But also it'll obviously primarily let you know what in the world is going on in your city. So things you need to focus on, whether you're underproducing something, overproducing something, whether or not your citizens are happy with the city services that are being provided at the time. So it'll be a great resource for just kind of maintaining and making sure you're meeting demands within the city. Citizens also chirp about events in their own lives, moving in with another person or breaking up, finding a new job, and so on. And as mentioned, they integrate with the Citizen Life Path, giving you an overview of the followed citizen's life. Cool. And next we're diving into education. And it states that there are 5 levels of education featured in the game: uneducated, poorly educated, educated, well-educated, and highly educated. Each school provides 1 level of education for citizens, so children are uneducated until they finish elementary school, which increases their education to poorly educated. Children will always go to school if possible, so make sure to provide enough capacity for your city's children. However, only teens can go to high school, where they increase from poorly educated to educated. And then both teens and adults can go to college, while adults only can attend the universities available in the city. College graduation rewards citizens with the well-educated status, and successfully finishing their university studies grants them highly educated. Families prefer living near elementary school so their children don't have far to school. so their children don't have far to walk to school. So I don't know. That's clearly a typo. But anyway, yeah, so in here we just have like a schoolyard. We see some students coming in. Teens and adults can choose to go to school or to get a job. To make this decision, they calculate the potential income if they choose to go to work and compare it to the income they'll receive from higher education level jobs if they continue with school and graduate, and see which one is more profitable for them. Some citizens have a preference for working instead of school, and even if the potential of future income would be better in the long run, they still choose to work instead of studying. Cool, that all makes sense. Kind of like in the real world, and I like there's some variation to it. It's not like everyone's just going to go through college and everyone's going to go to university. You'll have, all the different classes within your city, just as you should. And then we get into employment. Companies found in commercial, industrial, and office zones, and most city services have workplaces for citizens to fill. They're divided into complexity levels, which reflect education levels. City service workplaces remain the same throughout the building's existence, but when a zone building levels up, the complexity and composition of available jobs changes. A higher complexity level company requires employees with higher levels of education than a company with a lower complexity level. The workplace availability info view gives you a breakdown of your workforce and where in the city workplaces are found. So yeah, very similar info view to all the others we've been looking at, but this tells us about the workplace distribution, so how many jobs we have available for our uneducated, poorly educated, educated, and so on. And how many total open positions we have, I guess, between all of the different levels of education. So that's pretty cool as well. That way you can kind of focus on what you need to. You're not creating too many jobs if they're not being filled anyway, or you are creating enough jobs, if the demand is high. So good that you have those types of menus for reference. Zoned companies can also change the number of employees needed. If the company detects they're doing well, they can expand their workforce. If, on the other hand, they're doing poorly, they can shrink the workforce and save on wage costs to remain profitable and survive. Between the different company types, industrial manufacturing companies tend to have lower education requirements for employees regardless of building level, while commercial and office companies' level of complexity shifts more towards higher educated employees as they level up. And then we get into work efficiency. Employee education level represents their capacity to work in different jobs and positions. Higher educated employees are also more efficient in their work, and thus they have more significant influence on the company's efficiency as well as production output. When a company is missing employees, the higher education level jobs impact the efficiency and output more. Employees are able to do any job in their education level or lower. Even if a higher educated employee fills a lower level job, their effect on the company's efficiency is calculated with the job's level, not their individual education level, as they are not able to use all their talents in that position. If the company doesn't have employees at a high enough education level, they can't fill all the available jobs. This results in decreased efficiency and production. Citizen happiness also affects the company's efficiency and thus its production and profitability. Happy employees are a valuable commodity to a company, so it is important to take care of the citizens' well-being and health to ensure that the companies can thrive. If an employee gets sick or injured, they cannot work, which means that the company loses some of its efficiency. Once the employee has gotten well, they return to work life and continue contributing to the company's efficiency. Cool, okay, so it sounds like efficiency is just sort of a measurable thing based on how many people are available in the workforce. So totally makes sense, right? A company would want to fill all the jobs available and make sure that each person in that job is doing his or her role and contributing to the overall productivity and efficiency of the company. And I like that if someone gets sick or ill and is out, it sounds like the company's really going to miss that person. So it's going to actually have an impact. So yeah, I think that's an interesting little detail anyway. And here we get into criminal behavior, which I've kind of been looking forward to. I think this is going to be really interesting and fun to play with in the game. But anyway, it says that citizens can become criminals. The probability of this is relatively low, but the chance is increased if the citizen's well-being is low. When this happens, the citizen will commit a crime to earn income by first selecting the target of their criminal activity. The target is a building where the robbery takes place, and it is selected by comparing the buildings in the city and their crime probability values. The final choice is a random pick from the group of buildings with the highest crime probability values. The citizens living in the building targeted by the criminal will suffer a temporary loss of well-being. So is this saying that crimes will only be basically robbing buildings? Or there's not going to be any other kind of crime? If that is the case, I really hope they expand on that going forward. Because if not, that's totally a lost opportunity otherwise, in my opinion. But it says criminals will flee the scene to avoid getting caught by the police. Yep, as they would. And yep, you can see here Jacqueline is a well-educated, happy robber. Job level specialist as well. So not your everyday street alley robber. This person is a specialist. So good on them. You know, if you're going to be a criminal, be the best darn criminal around. Not really. Don't do that in real life. Don't be a criminal. But in the game, you know, yeah, if you're going to do it, be awesome at it. Why not? Especially if you're well educated. You know, if you're going to leave the workforce when there's a lot of jobs available for you, and you're going to go around robbing, you better make it worth your while. But all jokes aside, we'll move on from that there. And it goes on to say the criminal will travel to the building, commit the crime there, which takes some time, and then leave. When the crime takes place, an alarm is triggered and alerts the police station. But there is a small delay before the patrol car is sent to the crime scene. If the car reaches the location before the criminal leaves, the criminal is arrested. If the criminal leaves before the police arrive, they escape the law and are free to continue their criminal deeds another day. When a criminal is arrested, the police take them to a jail located at police stations and police headquarters. There's a portion of the arrested criminals who are sentenced to serve time in prison, either in the city if one is available, or at one of the outside connections if one is not available. Citizens who are not sentenced to prison are released and their criminal status is reset, just like criminals who have served their time in prison. Once released, they rejoin society as regular citizens. Depending on their age, citizens can die of old age while serving their prison sentence. Wow. Okay, cool. Again, super cool mechanic, but a huge opportunity they might be missing if robberies are literally the only crime in the game. I would imagine they would expand upon that though with a DLC or something, because that could get so interesting. You know, you could have vehicle thefts, you could have people getting mugged in the streets, you could have, you know, just vandalism or something. You could have all kinds of stuff intertwined in the game, especially if you're gonna have a prison system and all of that. Like that's a huge opportunity. So I really hope either there's more to it to begin with, or they, at the very least, really take some time and expand that at some point in the near future once the game's out. Especially if they're talking about prison sentences as well, and people of old age can die in prison. Like, there should be different crimes with different sentences, and, you know, it shouldn't be like the same sort of thing. Like, I think it'd be cool if there was an option for people to spend their life in prison and not get out and have their criminal status reset. I don't know. It's totally unimportant. It's a city builder, but if you're gonna have crime and stuff built into it, why not go all the way? And now we are getting into the penultimate subject of the day, which is leisure and tourists. Citizens love their free time and want to spend it in the city visiting parks and other attractions, going shopping, and enjoying entertainment in the various restaurants and bars. This need for leisure affects their well-being, and when their leisure decreases, they seek opportunities to increase it. Not all options are created equally, though, which means it takes a different amount of time to gain leisure in different places. Citizens choose the location based on the amount of and how quickly they can gain leisure, while staying there, as well as comparing the pathfinding costs to different locations. And getting into tourists and city attractiveness. Tourists are citizens who visit the city briefly. They stay at a local hotel while in the city and make choices daily whether to visit one of the city's attractions and commercial areas or stay at the hotel. The city's attractiveness value determines how many tourists are drawn to the city, and this value can be increased by building parks and various other attractions such as landmarks. Tourists make similar calculations about their leisure targets as citizens, comparing the leisure value of the locations to their distance from the hotel and deciding which of them is the best option for them to gain leisure. Sunny and warm days invite your citizens to enjoy outdoor activities. Cool. And so this is something they talked about before. So on sunny days, you will actually see people out doing more of the outdoor activities. And on rainy days or in the snow or what have you, you will see people acquiring their leisure via indoor activities more. So Really cool. And here we got a nice looking outdoor park. Looks like there's a little food truck out here, some picnic tables, really nice little area. Next to what appears to be some kind of big parking garage or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, looks really good anyway. And this dude is just chilling hard, just literally lying on the ground. That's cool to see. And then we get into the types of leisure our citizens can go for. Leisure can be gained from various locations. City recreation includes indoor and outdoor recreation possibilities in the form of tourist attractions and landmarks, parks and plazas, and various sports venues such as a tennis court, soccer field, or community pool. Awesome. So it is confirmed we've got at least tennis courts, soccer fields, and pools in the game. I was wondering when they mentioned sports venues in the featured highlights video just how deep that's going to go. This doesn't really tell us a whole lot, but it does tell us we at least have those three. So tennis courts, soccer fields, and pools. I'm sure there'll be more to that, baseball fields, basketball courts, that type of thing. So anyway, very cool. Commercial recreation includes commercial zones where citizens and tourists can go shopping and spend time at malls and all kinds of cozy boutiques. They can also gain leisure from entertainment, visiting local bars or eating fancy meals at local restaurants. These leisure locations differ from others in that the citizens and tourists pay for the leisure gain as they buy beverages and meals while at the location, combining their need for goods with their need for leisure. And here it tells us the inverse of what it said earlier. So on rainy and cold days, your citizens will prefer indoor activities such as visiting a local bar. And here we have one of our local bars. We have the Crazy Colibri, which, as always, really good looking asset. Looks so much better than anything we had in the first game. Even the logo and all the signage isn't too overwhelming. Even what you see in the background here, the advertisements just all seem to be a lot nicer than they were in the first game. So it'll be really cool to see these kind of strewn throughout the city, I think. Your citizens can also decide to travel to one of the outside connections for leisure, essentially becoming tourists in another city. The whole household hops into their car or one of the public transport options and leaves the city for a few days. That's pretty cool. So you'll actually see people going on vacation, going out of town. That's cool. Lastly, weather affects citizens and tourist behavior when choosing their leisure locations. Good, sunny, and warm weather encourages them to seek leisure in outdoor recreation places such as parks and plazas, while rainy, snowy, and cold weather causes citizens and tourists to seek indoor leisure in the form of shopping and entertainment. Cool. Yeah, we just went over that. And lastly, we talk about citizen conditions. Certain events can cause conditions for citizens which are visible on the citizens info panel. While there is no direct way to remove conditions from citizens, the player can investigate the causes and through city management help the overall situation. As an example, if citizens are becoming sick, it can be a sign of sewage backing up in pipes, pollution spreading to residential areas, or insufficient healthcare service in the city causing decreased health, which leads to an increased probability of becoming sick. Depending on the cause, you can improve the situation by expanding city services, such as your sewage treatment options, or by building a medical clinic or hospital to take care of the sick condition and remove the negative effects from the area, making sure citizens remain healthy. Below, we have an overview of the different conditions citizens can be afflicted with. And these conditions are sick, which means they cannot work, and as long as they remain sick, they're at increased danger of dying. Medical treatment is required to recover from a sick condition. Next, we have injured, which means they also cannot work. They become injured when involved in traffic accidents, building fires that collapse, and natural disasters. Medical treatment is required to recover from this condition as well. Then we have homeless, and this represents citizens who cannot pay the rent where they live, and with no means to move to another home or out of the city, they become homeless. They have no permanent residence and end up living in various city parks. Unwell citizens have a low well-being value. Their happiness value decreases, and their contribution to work is also negatively affected. Additionally, they're at risk of becoming criminals if their well-being doesn't increase. Weak citizens have low health value. This decreases their happiness and negatively affects their contribution to work as well. Citizens with low health are at high risk of becoming sick, and when a weak citizen becomes sick, their health value decreases to very low, putting them at an increased risk of dying if they don't get medical treatment. Citizens who are in danger or trapped are distressed. Citizens are in danger when they're in a burning building, while trapped citizens are involved in a building collapse and are buried under the rubble. Sometimes citizens who are in a burning building can also become trapped, unable to escape. Gosh, that's brutal. And lastly, evacuated. Evacuated citizens are in an emergency shelter. Citizens can travel to an emergency shelter by themselves, or they can be picked up by evacuation bus, which transports them to the emergency shelter. Cool. And that wraps up all the different conditions our citizens can find themselves in. And that also wraps up the dev diary and today's video. So just like the featured highlights the other day, pretty straightforward. It's kind of interesting, all the details that we're getting though about the different conditions our citizens can be in, just how different the healthcare system is this time around with the possibility of catching colds, things like that. Also the criminal system I think is pretty cool, but as I talked about earlier, hopefully something they expand on a bit in the future. And the way that people decide to pursue their leisure time indoors when it's kind of crappy outside versus doing more outdoor activities when it's nice outside. I think all of it's really cool and in line with the whole realism thing they're going for this time around. So I'm pretty excited about it all and don't really have too many complaints, to be honest, but I want to hear what you all think. Overall, are you guys happy with what we know about Citizen Simulation and LifePath now in the game? What are you all excited about, or what questions or concerns do you have? Please let us all know in the comments. Really curious to hear what you're thinking. And lastly, as always, I want to let you know I really appreciate you hanging out with me today, and I want to encourage you to consider subscribing if you haven't already, and to hit the like if you enjoyed today's video or found it informative. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the video, please feel free to drop a dislike as well. But with all that said, I want to thank you again, and I hope you all have a great day.